also be educated as well as also know what is expected of us when it comes to the issue of applying the FCT roads. Let's get to know as a way of opening what are some of the regulations by the time we put our cars on the road. What are we supposed to do?
First of all, I think there is need for us to understand that the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory is empowered by law to make transportation regulations, as it concerns all models of vehicles. Before you can put your vehicle on the road, there are procedures you need to follow. The vehicle needs to be registered, to be licensed. It needs to be inspected to be sure that it's roadworthy, and then it has to be insured, and then the driver has to carry a particular class of a driver license. I mean, these are all that comes together before you can use FCT roads.
Okay, well, let's now be more specific to the issue of the day, talking about the articulated vehicles on the FCT road. I don't know whether you have a specific regulation also that deal with such.
Yeah, of course. Just like every other vehicle, even though we consider it a special vehicle because of the gross weight, and then as the name implies, an articulated vehicle, which means a vehicle that is carrying additional body. So it requires special skill for such vehicle to be, driven, and then requires certain road character too for such vehicle to fly, seamlessly. So, and because of that, the FCT administration in 2010 initiated for, inbound for people coming into the city to work, and then from 3 to 10 p.m. in the evening, they are supposed to be off the road to allow outbound of people going from the city back to the satellite, town. So this has been, the timing regulation that we have been trying to enforce, in the FCT.
Okay, well, if we look at from the time such a regulation or law was created, I think is ample time enough for us to have said, okay, what we say today is absolute compliance, but we still have issues of non-compliance, and I don't know if you're handicapped to enforce such, a law.
From what I have always explained in several fora that I have been asked similar questions, that once a law is established, it requires some level of synergy, enforcement synergy to carry out such a law to success. But if the enforcement is not broadened and there's no synergy, and of course, because road traffic officers cannot be everywhere, there are areas where such other agencies must have established checkpoints, so, and they can complement. So, but this is what has not been happening, effectively. But with the incessant, accidents, there's need for, such, call for, enforcement synergy among the relevant, security agencies and law enforcement agencies to come together and see how they can, manage the regulation, and that's what is happening at the moment.
Okay, now can we understand, talking about the FCT roads now or locations, where are some of these locations you think the law or regulation affects in terms of the timing you stated earlier? Where are some of these locations?
Particularly we look at certain road characters that could affect particularly the articulated vehicle in areas where you have series of intersections, areas where you have probably slopy roads, and possibly where you have mixed use of vehicles, both light vehicles and articulated vehicles. So, but if you are conversant with the accident, the crashes that have been happening in the FCT, you will discover that it's always happening around near Kefi Road, because of that particular road character. The road is slopey, and once these vehicles are overloaded, and then of course managing braking distance is always an issue. If there's emergency and they have to apply the brake, they will slip, and once they slip, they hit one vehicle. Before you know it, you have multiple crashes. So that's what has been happening. I mean, that's the reason why we decided to now exclude them from the road, particularly peak hours, so that they can have less interaction with other light vehicles flying the road at the same time.
Okay, well, most often talking about the enforcement, which I think is very critical in what we're discussing, in this program. Most times you'll see challenging, scenarios or situations where your officers, find it difficult to implement that, probably, meeting recalcitrant, articulated drivers on the road. What better ways do you think we should be able to manage situations like that?
And of course, I think to me, we have to begin to look at, how to broaden the concept of transportation. There's been over-concentration on the road, so for movement of goods from one place to the other, sometimes we need to begin to look at other modes of transportation to handle that, to decongest, and again, we have to, begin to look at what technology that can be applied to ensure that, the vehicles are, regulated, from the onset. And think, to me, we have to do a lot more, than just putting men on the road. We have to begin to look at possibly if we have to do dedicated routes for such category of vehicle, so that the level of interaction with light vehicles, will be reduced, and actually address or mitigate road crashes. These are some of the issues that I believe that in the future we have to begin to look at, and then we have to begin to again probably define who should drive these vehicles, because in all this we have the road factor, we have the vehicle factor, and we have the driver factor. And the driver factor is very eminent because, first of all, how are they trained, to become articulated vehicle drivers? Most of them are derived from apprenticeship, method. So I think we need to begin to look at what special institutions do we need to create, to provide adequate training required for, such drivers. But attitude is very key, and some of them drive under influence and they don't obey regulations. So we need to begin to look at and possibly disaggregate some of these issues and then address them as it is, before we can really have a lasting solution to some of these problems.
Okay, well, still on the issue just ironed out, what about the issue of recklessness? Is it also part of what you've also seen from on the part of these drivers?
Not majorly, because even where the roads are, where you have slopey road, there are conditions, there are required tonnage. For example, the gross weight of any articulated vehicle should not be more than 30 tons. So, but again, we discover that there is no, adherence. There's poor adherence to, this simple regulation that an articulated vehicle or a vehicle must not carry. Together with the gross weight of with the weight of the vehicle plus what is, the content should not be more than 30 tons. But the moment they load, they have an overload, and on a slopey road, it's always very difficult for them to control, their braking distance, and that's why we have some of these issues. So the driver education is very key, and then the kind of people that drive this vehicle, how are they recruited? What level of education do they have, before they are, issued license, to put such vehicles or to drive such vehicles. So these are, and unfortunately, motor vehicle administration is a state matter. So each state, probably has, a different approach to managing this. So, but we need to have a national approach, that will be cascaded down to, the state, so that we have a uniform standard like every other developed clients, and that's what I think we'll have.
Okay, well, earlier you tried to, suggest probably solutions to some of these issue that has continued unabated for a very long time. Don't you also think technology can also be, considered, in trying to bring solution like we've seen in other developed climes?
We in the FCT, we are proposing to have, articulated terminals, so that articulated vehicles coming into the city will have to go into the terminal, and they are all going to be established at the entry points of the city. So, and those articulated vehicles will have to enter the terminal, and then before they exit the terminal, they will be inspected. We'll have computerized inspection systems that will have to inspect, the roadworthiness of that vehicle, and then we will have, in addition to that, we will have, other complementary services. We'll have a weigh bridge that will take the weight of the vehicle. So all this, if it's done, then it's going to be very difficult if you don't have, the level of compliance required. You cannot fly, you cannot enter the city. So that's the plan. And it's when we do this, then we can now apply all various, technology, to monitor, because from there will be monitoring devices that will, see all the vehicles through the city. You understand, and then be able to monitor their performance, their conduct, and all that. So, but until we have such devices, what we are doing is just, ensuring that we deploy manually and enforce manually, which is very limited in terms of, success. But I hope with the, level of synergy we have established, with other agencies, including even the military who established checkpoints at the entry points, we will be, seeing some level of result, in the time being.
Earlier you mentioned about one of the characters on the road, which has to do with the human factor now. In trying to probably issue driver's license, don't you think you have work to do in terms of approving who is qualified and who is not qualified to drive articulated vehicles? Because most times you see a very teenagers on the wheels. I don't know how disturbing and how we can, curb such a trend.
The appropriate age for, truck driver is 26 according to the highway code, for Nigeria. But the international best practice or standard is anybody above 18 years having, passed through, the normal training institution and have acquired the Class G driver license and having been evaluated mentally and physically, so you can drive. So it's not impossible, like anybody can, take his driver license from any state, that may not, have what it takes, to, go through all these, regulations. And then once somebody has a license, you can't prevent that person from driving through the federal capital, for instance. So, but for us, for the federal capital territory, we have an institute called Driver Institute established in Dubek, though it's not the permanent site. The permanent site is along Airport Road, undeveloped yet. It's supposed to have driver range, supposed to have all facilities, required for any category of driver, any category of license driver to be trained. So it's still a work in progress. But as long as it's a state matter, unless we have an active national legislation on what should be done that will, integrate every state, it's going to be very difficult for you, for you to restrict a driver who has a license. You don't know how the driver probably was processed, but the person has the license to operate. So what do you do? So this is a challenge. So, but for us, I think the best bet is that we have recommended nationwide that there should be articulated terminals where you can do secondary checks for all these drivers. Unless that happens, then it's going to be very difficult to monitor and curtail the excesses and the failure of these regulations.
Okay, what do you have to say? There is this perception or public perception out there that probably there's a level of compromise from road officers that are supposed to manage some of these issues of articulated vehicles. I don't know if how you respond to that.
Yeah, it's normal. Once you in any situation where you have poor technology, of course you should expect that sentiments, emotions, so many of these things will come to play. But in developed countries where technology is likely used to manage some of these issues are less prevalent. But again, like I said, it's a gradual process. We are beginning to introduce technology to reduce human interaction. Some of these very delicate areas, so it's a gradual process. So I understand, but to me it's a gradual process. We'll get to right. For instance, now most of our traffic lights are supposed to be managed electronically too, but effort is going. You park, you wait for red, and somebody will drive past you, and then you just watch. You don't expect an enforcement agency to start pursuing that vehicle, because if doing that you are equally violating the traffic regulation. But the most important thing is that the moment we begin to have electronic device to control, what should follow is an electronic means of addressing penalty and sanctions. I think all these are work in progress for the Federal Capital Territory.
Okay, well, talking about the issue of the behavior of some of these articulated drivers, and like you say, probably they've been certified worthy to drive from a different state, from another state. Wouldn't you think there should also be like uh,
It's because now there's no technology to monitor such vehicles, and then there is no defined location where such vehicle can be confined for such check. That's why we have recommended truck terminals. Some of these things happen in terminals. This is where the vehicles can be wrecked. So unless we have that, it's going to be very difficult, given our situation, to begin to stop probably a vehicle on a highway that you want to check that vehicle. It's going to be a little bit risky. And then because of like I said, the attitude problem of the truck drivers, you will believe, or I'm sure you must have experienced it, that if you stop an articulated vehicle on the road for any reason, for enforcement, and then others will block the road, and if care is not taken, you may not even have that right of road for that day. It's been happening. So it needs a national legislation, active one for that matter, to be able to address some of these issues. And I'm sure as they are becoming a factor of concern, I'm sure the solution is not far-fetched.
Well, I must thank you, Dr. Abdulateef Bello. Got to go on a short break. There will be more questions for us to answer when we return from the break. You're still watching issues on the United Station NT Channel 5 Abuja. Well, it's time to take a break, and when we return, my guest is still here. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned, and I still have my guest here, Dr. Abdulateef Bello, Directorate of FCT Road Traffic Services, who is helping us make sense on some of the issues concerning articulated vehicles and enforcement in the nation's capital, Abuja. All right, sir, let's now turn attention to the issue of probably this enforcement has not been too, effective. Probably maybe the fines are not too stringent. What is even the fine in the case of someone who has violated, the regulations?
If an articulated vehicle violates the restriction, the timing restriction, the fine is 100,000 as reviewed in the transport regulation, 2023. So, and then if you are a serial violator, your driver license can be withdrawn, suspended for 3 years, until you repent. This is what the regulation stipulates. But like I said, it is always very difficult, to enforce, because if you don't, like for instance, our staff need to mobilize, particularly those around the Kubo Command. In fact, that was the reason why the Kubo Command was established. They have to be at work as early as 5 a.m. to prepare to, enforce that regulation. And in most cases, you find those that are very recalcitrant, and they have knocked down some of our staffs in the past. They have pulled our staff from one location to a very far location, and possibly because other agencies have not been supporting. I believe that is the responsibility of the VIOs to do that. So, but however, the good thing is that the location is predominantly used by other security agencies. For instance, the military, they have checkpoints there, and that particular route is mostly their route because of their barracks that are located there. So what we needed to do was to approach them for support, and then and we have been getting that, and then most of our staff now enjoy some leverage, some support because of their presence, and that has emboldened them to do their job, and they are doing that effectively.
But if we can ride on that, don't you think the VIO or the RTS probably will need to have this inter-agency collaboration with security agencies to be able to get more support, like you just mentioned, to be able to be more effective?
And that's what we do, because we are not arms carrying department or agency. So most of our job, most of our enforcement is being supported by other agencies. We have a joint tax team, that is comprised of, the military, the police, the federal safety, civil defense, and others. And we have been working together. I think they have contributed to the level of success we have achieved, but of course, there is room for improvement. There is need to do more, So, and that's exactly what we do. We have a joint, a body called FCT Road Safety Council, but we are supposed to meet by next week. That's to review our first quarter activities and performances. So, we have several, platforms that we engage, But again, just that it's need for us to always improve and do more.
We must thank you very sincerely. It's been incisive with the director of the RTSF, Sete, and he has said a lot. And as stakeholders, we all have a role to play towards ensuring that FCT roads are always safe for all of us to fly. Do join us again, same time, same station, when we bring you another topic on the program issues. I am Abdullah Hajia. Good night.